Hi everybody, in this video I'm going to do something a little different. I had a viewer that they wanted to know if I could make a video on the toggle system or the toggle component in Unity, but specifically how to enable and disable. So enable and disable these settings, these post-processing volume settings, and also be able to save it. So when you actually hit play and you get out of play mode and you go back to it, it will be the same exact way as when you exited play mode. So let's just get started. Hopefully it made sense. If not, it will make sense in a little bit. So all I did was I downloaded the post-processing package from the package manager. So post-processing, go to the packages right here, Unity registry, go to post-processing, just hit install, wait for that to install, and then once it is installed, I added an empty game object called post-processing. I added this post-processing volume by going to add component, typing in post-process volume, hit enter, and then I checked is global, so the whole scene is affected by this. And then you could over here add effects. I added ambient occlusion, that's why it's grayed out, and auto exposure. If I add something like bloom, I go down, it will also be grayed out. So I'm just gonna remove this. Now all you have to do is hit new, so you could create this profile and have this add effect button settings, or this button for add effect. And then I added a manager. The manager, it was just an empty game object. I'm going to zero it out, and then I'm going to add a script so we could get this tutorial started. And it's just going to be called save post processing setting with toggle. So now we're just going to open that up. And as soon as it opens up, we're going to have to import a library. It's going to be called using Unity engine.rendering.post processing. This will help us get all those post-processing settings. And we're just going to erase everything, and we're going to add a serialized field, post-process volume. This is going to be our post-processing volume as it suggests. And we're also going to add a private ambient occlusion, because that is the setting that we want to change in our post-processing. So if I go back real quick, this is one of the settings I want to change. So I'm going to add an ambient occlusion, and I'm going to just rename it the same thing. And I'm also going to add an auto exposure and also name it the same thing. And we're going to add two bools. They're going to be private. They're going to be called ambient or is occlusion on, and another one called is exposure on. They're going to be automatic, or by default they're going to be set to false, both of them. So we'll just leave it like that. Now we're going to create an awake function, and this awake function is going to try to get our settings. So if I go to post process volume dot profile dot try get settings and add the parentheses and put out ambient occlusion, just like that. And then after that we'll do the same thing for the exposure. So we'll just copy it and paste it and change this to auto exposure. Now after that we'll come back to the awake function, but for now we're just going to add a public void toggle occlusion. So this is going to toggle our occlusion on and off depending on our toggle button. So we're going to add a bool, and this is going to be the value. So the value, if it's true or false, and we're gonna set is occlusion on equal to the value. So if this is true, then the occlusion will be true. If it is false, then occlusion will be false. And then we're gonna also do is we're gonna put our ambient occlusion dot active. So we're gonna set it to either be true or false depending on the value. And then lastly, what we're gonna do is we're gonna save it. So this is how we're going to save our data. So save it depending if the user has set it on or off. So we're just going to put player prefs. You could also use JSON, but this is just an easier way and a simpler way to explain it and to show it. But later on I will show you guys how to use JSON, just quicker. So now we're going to put set. Now if we see it, we could set a float, an integer, or a string. Now it's kind of tricky to get strings and set it back to a bool value. You can do something like try parse and try to get that, but it's a little more tricky. So to keep this simple, we're just gonna set it as an int, so as an integer, and we're gonna name this is gonna be our key. So the name we're gonna associate this data with, so we're gonna put occlusion, so we know this is our occlusion data. And then I'm just gonna set the value, and this is gonna be a little confusing, but what I'm pretty much gonna do is check if the value is true or false by putting value and then a question mark. So that's going to say, is it true? Is this condition true or is it false? If it is true, I'm going to make it equal to 1. So the value is going to be 1. But if it's false, so that's where these colons come in, it's going to be equal to 0. So again, if this condition is true, it's going to be 1. Else, if it's false, it's going to be 0. So 1 is pretty much going to equal true for us. 0 is going to equal false. Now up here in our awake function, we're going to do if player prefs dot get int. So we're going to get the data back from that. And the data we're going to get is the occlusion data. So if this is equal to 1, it means pretty much it's true. So we're pretty much just going to copy this, set it in here. But instead of putting value, we're just going to put true. Same for here, true. And then else, so if it is not equal to 1, it must equal 0. And we're just going to set this to false. Now, so that should work. Now all we would have to do is go to our occlusion toggle, go to onValueChanged, add it, add our manager, because it has our code in it. Go to the functions, go to our class or the script we wrote, and then just hit toggle occlusion right here in the dynamic bool. Not on the static parameters, because there's another one right here that says the same thing, toggle occlusion, but right here on the dynamic bool. Now with that, we have to go to our manager, add our post-processing volume. So when we add that, we hit play. Actually, there's one more thing I forgot to mention. We would also have to add toggles. So to add toggles, we would have to put using Unity Engine.ui, and we would add a serialized field right here and put toggle. And this is going to be our occlusion toggle and our exposure toggle. Now the reason we need this is because down here, when we're setting it, we have to set it to either be on or off. So occlusion toggle dot is on equals true here because it is set to 1, but down here it's going to be just false. So occlusion toggle dot is on equals false. Now we'll add the occlusion toggle, and for now our exposure toggle, and hit play. Now we hit our occlusion toggle, it's off, the occlusion's off. Now when we go back, it should still be off, both occlusion on the cube and right here. So as you can see, if we go to post-processing, this is also turned off. So that's working. For now, it's working all good. Now to do our auto exposure, an easy way to do it would just be copy and paste everything. So copy this one, paste it, put exposure for the key name, and we'll just put is exposure on. Copy this, paste it down here, and then put auto exposure dot active equals true. Copy it, put it down here, and then exposure toggle dot is on. Put it all down here too as well. So we'll copy this function as well, paste it, and then we'll put toggle exposure. Now there's other ways you could do this. This is just the simple way, so you guys kind of get the idea of how to toggle post-processing effects and save them. So now we'll just put is exposure on, and we'll put auto exposure dot active equals value, and we'll just put exposure right here and make sure it is spelled the same way. It will not save or load, so just make sure it's put the same way. Now we could add our event or on value changed and add our manager. We'll go to the save post-process settings, and this time hit toggle exposure. Now when we hit play, we could see both of them are off for now. If I enable exposure, you can see that little bright light. And let's say I enable ambient occlusion, so they're both on now. Say turn it off, stay on. Say I toggle auto exposure off, just leave ambient occlusion on, stays the same as I left it. And one more time, we're gonna disable the ambient occlusion, but enable auto exposure. See if it worked, and it did work. And then if you guys don't know, a way of cleaning this code pretty much up would be just highlight the code that you want to turn into a function. So we're going to turn this one into a function by hitting control period or dot on our keyboard, and we'll just extract method. So now it's going to put this function up here called new method, and we're just going to add our method, and we're going to name it check if occlusion, or we'll put set up occlusion settings, and it is all written down here for us now, and it's private. Everything's good. We could do the same thing, control dot or period, go to extract method, and just put set up auto exposure. now it's a little cleaner. But yeah, that's it for this video. I hope this video was useful. I hope this is what the viewer was mentioning, what he wanted. But if you guys enjoyed this video, do not forget to hit that like button. If you guys learned something, hit that like button. If you guys want to continue to see more videos like this, do not forget to hit that subscribe button. Hit that bell icon if you want to get notified as soon as I post a video. Once again, thank you guys.